Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of The Comic Book Nerd. This, of course, is episode 2. Thank you so much for returning after episode 1. Or if this is your first episode, thanks so much for checking it out. And remember to tell your friends, spread the word, because this is, I love doing this. And hopefully a bunch of you listen so I can keep doing it for a long time. Let's start off with the plug parade here. All the different ways you can communicate with me and help get whatever you want talked about on this podcast talked about. Of course, there's the website, comicbooknerd.net. There's even, I think it's Contact Us. There's a Contact Us tab on the page you can go to and just leave a little message, and it comes straight to me. And if you've got thoughts on each show's weekly topic or anything like that, you can go ahead and share that with me, or you've got a question or anything you want me to read on the show, or anything like that. Again, that's the Contact Us page on comicbooknerd.net. You can go to facebook.com/the Comic Book Nerd Podcast. That is, as you would assume, the Facebook page. Go ahead and give that a like if you haven't already. There is a blog page, the comicbooknerd.blogspot.com. That will also have the archive of all the past episodes there available to go back and scroll through and look at as the number grows more from just 2. So it's not much of an archive at the moment, but here's hoping it becomes a pretty good one. You can follow the show on Twitter at the CB Nerd. You can follow me specifically on Twitter at eRalphieW. Just a bit of a spoiler alert though with that. You're not just going to get the awesome, nerdy, comic booky type of content. I also tweet about the Browns. I'm an avid Browns fan, and I tweet about how disappointed I am in them and how much they make me want to be drunk. So you also get some of that. Again, that's eRalphieW. All right, let's get right into things though. This week's topic, as I told you last week, is villain movies. It's a big thing coming up now in the cinematic universes of Marvel and DC. On the, not so much the Marvel Cinematic Universe, to say, but for example, on the DC side of things, they have the Suicide Squad announced to be coming out August 5th, 2016, and they did cast the whole team, and I will get into that in just a minute, but this first part isn't really about the specifics of those movies so much as the concept of making movies about the bad guys. Marvel Studios so far doesn't have a movie planned that is specifically to focus on a villain, but as far as a Marvel property goes though, Sony, who owns Spider-Man, unfortunately, I will be right up front with my opinion in case anything I say sounds very negative about Sony and what they do. I do not like what Sony has done with the Spider-Man franchise. The first 3 movies were whatever. The third one, obviously, not so great, but that was fine. But now, as Marvel has their cinematic universe, they have wanted to do the same thing, and they've hoped that these Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies would branch out and open up doors for other Spider-Man related properties that they're in the film rights to, so they could be cracking out nearly a movie a year or a movie every 2 years in the Spider-Man universe. I don't like the idea of an extended Spider-Man film universe. I don't mind a series of Spider-Man movies and maybe a spin-off here and there or something, but I mean, how many characters really are you going to turn into something? They have not the topic today. It'll definitely be a topic for a later show. But there's rumors of a planned movie called Glass Ceiling. That's maybe a working title, or maybe what they actually want to call it. A team movie of all female characters from the Spider-Man universe, which I'm scratching my head trying to think of too many. Spider-Woman, but I didn't even think she counted because she's really not a spider person. She is, but it's entirely different. She's not, really doesn't have anything to do with him. But apparently Spider-Woman, Black Cat, maybe Silver Sable. I'd be hard pressed to go any further than that. Silk is a character that just debuted in the Marvel comics. I'd be really surprised if they tried to get her to the big screen already, but who knows what Sony wants to do. But Sony, anyways, the point I'm even bringing this up is Sony reportedly has 1 to 2 or 0, depending on what you read, villain movies that they have planned. The most recent one would be as well in 2016. I think that's in November, so it would be later of that same year. Would be a planned Sinister Six movie, which there's still reports one way or another how that's even going to work out. Is it a movie about the six of them doing evil? There's one report that there's a villain that shows up that's even bigger than them. that requires Spider-Man to team up with the Sinister Six, a la the Dirty Dozen. And then there's other reports that they're not satisfied anymore with the Andrew Garfield movies after the second one was a disappointment. So they may even recast Spider-Man and use this movie to introduce a new Spider-Man. This sounds like a disaster. Honestly, we're getting close to Christmas, and all I want for Christmas, my letter to Santa just says, "Dear Santa, please, for the love of God, take the Spider-Man rights away from Sony and give them back to Marvel Studios." Not even necessarily to see more Spider-Man films, but just to stop whatever Sony's trying to do. There's also more reports of a Venom movie. Some even saying it could be called Venom Carnage, and it could be about both of them, or it could lead into a whole thing about Venom and Carnage. Speaking of Carnage, coming up a little later in the show, that's going to be the character that I'm going to help you guys get to know. Again, that's later. Right now is the concept of villain movies. So, and I won't even get on the rest of the Sony stuff. I won't even get into the hack. There's some ridiculous stuff that's coming out of that too, like Sony execs wanting to see them cranking out Spider-Man movies even faster, which, what do you want execs to say? They're not going to talk about whether or not it's a good movie. They're going to talk about, dollar figures and cracking them out as fast as they can. But anyways, villain movies is the topic. And I went to Reddit and I opened it up to people on our comic books. And I went to see what they had to say about the idea of villain movies and who... I asked some who they might want to see possibly get their own movie as time goes on. And we start with user Weird Mountain says, "We watch movies all the time where we root for the bad guys." He says, "Anybody who likes Ocean 11, there's a villain movie." That's a very good point. We do already have these, but this is the first time that it's coming to the comic book movie side of things, which is what really makes it interesting. Is we've had those where there's sort of the roguish character, and like that is a heist movie. Which, well, they've said Ant-Man is a heist movie now too. So, but Ant-Man is a hero by most stretch of the imagination. This is a little bit of a different though. This is straight up. This is super villains. There's bad guys. There's just George Clooney robbing a casino is one thing. Then there's suicidal maniacs like the Joker. It's really a whole nother extreme to it. And here we have user Golden Blue, probably a DC reference to Blue Beetle and Booster Gold. He says a villain movie is tricky because the villain has to be the hero in their movie. This is why you see popular villains become more anti-heroes as their popularity grows. Magneto, Loki, Deadpool, Harley Quinn, etc. It's pretty easy to see a Magneto movie because he's not really a villain in the traditional sense. Even Suicide Squad puts them in a situation where the bad guys have to do good. But a Sinister Six movie makes no sense to me. If a Joker movie were made, it would not work, in my opinion. It is really a case-by-case basis. And that's a very good point. I'm going to give my thought on all this once I get through a couple more of these comments to sort of wrap things up. I'll tell you what I think about it, because I think there's a pretty clear-cut answer here. But that's a very good point about the anti-hero aspect of characters, because I do think a Magneto movie could work out pretty cool, but as some of you may know, there was a plan at one point for Fox when they finished their X-Men trilogy and realized, oh God, what do we do? And they started trying to, again, they were in a situation like Sony was a little bit, but obviously they pulled themselves out of it, where they kind of finished what they were doing and now they didn't know what to do. Fox obviously figured out, though, they did X-Men Origins Wolverine, which was horrible, and one of the worst films I've ever seen of any genre. It's just pretty bad. Well, they did that movie, and then there was talks of X-Men Origins Magneto. One of him is growing up and kicking some Nazis' asses in the concentration camps. Because there's one way to make your villain work. Is, yes, Magneto's a bad guy. Yes, he wants humans to die. He kind of hates us. But you could always root for him over a Nazi, honestly. That's just a quick way to get the villain, the audience rooting for the villain. I'll just have him fight a Nazi and it's done. Although we did see the actor who plays Magneto fight Nazis in Inglourious Bastards. So Michael Fassbender, yeah. When we saw Fassbender in that movie, he played some British dude. But anyways, different story. They did want to do a Magneto origin movie, but then that sort of ended up getting folded into a Professor X origin movie, which of course became X-Men First Class, which is a pretty good movie. Some questionable things there, but it's not bad overall. Days of Future Past was definitely better. It's probably the best X-Men movie they've ever made. But anyways, here we have user Ugly Duckling. He says, I want to see an onomatopoeia horror movie where he just kills off a team of D-listers one by one. Onomatopoeia from DC Comics. That got me thinking. That sounds intriguing. That's user Ugly_Duck. I don't know if I said that, but that one sounds really interesting to me. Although I think the problem you get into with that is that might work maybe as sort of like a dark animated thing or something like that where you can have a little more liberty with everything. Because you can't really introduce a whole slew of D-listers and just here's these guys and then just start popping them. It's not necessarily gonna work out like that, but that could be awesome in a different format, in like an animated film or something like that. I think could be really fun, something where you could have a little more freedom with it. User Capt Scarbridge says, I like to think that Fox is effing up, I'll censor it, that Fox is freaking up Doctor Doom's persona in the new Fantastic Four movie so that they can move him away from being the main antagonist and give him his own anti-hero movie. Then again, this is the same company that canceled Futurama and keeps Family Guy going. They canceled Family Guy too, though, by the way. That was twice. Obviously, it's not canceled anymore. But interesting theory. I really don't think so. I love Doctor Doom. He's one of my favorite villains of all time. I do think what they've said so far about him makes me sick to the pit of my stomach. For anyone that hasn't heard, what he means by fricking up Doctor Doom's persona is that his name is not going to be Doom, which I will concede that. The last name Doom or Von Doom is a little bit absurd. So they named it the Domashev, Domashev. So he's Victor Domashev. And what they did is he is an online blogger, commenter type, whatever, who goes by the internet pseudonym of Doom. Doom is his internet persona. Doom is his handle, at Doom on Twitter. That sounds absolutely moronic. Dr. Doom is a merciless dictator of his own country. Not an angry blogger or angry guy on 4chan or something. That is absolutely one of the sharpest 180s you can do. It's part of this whole thing going on with some of these movies where they just try to take a guy who's this big bad brooding type and try to turn him into something else. And like reports coming out from Batman versus Superman, I'm sorry, what they're doing to Lex Luthor is absolutely stupid. Lex Luthor's obviously like the big evil like businessman type of guy, and they're having Jesse Eisenberg play him. And it's so what, he's going to be more of like a Mark Zuckerberg type? Like now he's like an internet billionaire or something? I don't understand. I think Mark Zuckerberg as him is, I think Mark Zuckerberg could play a good character. I think he's a good actor. I just don't, that just seems like some of the worst casting you could possibly do. And it's I think it's in the same vein as with this Doctor Doom stuff, where it's like they're taking these like big evil figures like that and they're almost acting like those figures don't exist. I saw a comment someone made once where it says they're taking these big evil like oil baron type of characters like that and trying to update them, when these big evil oil barons, they're still here. They're still very much real. This archetype that they are still exists very much in the real world. So the idea of changing it or updating it's unnecessary, because they are something that is still around. Anyways, this is user Luigi Eats Popcorn. You get the award for best name of the day. He says, I would totally be up for Magneto. His current ongoing series is awesome, and it shows how cool Magneto is solo. You're absolutely right. It's in my pull list. I read it every week that it comes out. It's a great series, and I recommend it to you folks at home too. That's a really good point. Again, like I said though about Magneto, got his own movie by X-Men First Class. Makes me think the odds of him getting a solo movie right now are probably pretty low. They're really trying to roll out with the X-Men team stuff, and there's a lot of other teams they can do, and a lot of other things with the X-Men they can do more so than more prequel type of stuff like that. Anyways, though, my thoughts on all this is, I think it's not that I don't think we're ready for a villain movie, because I think they can pull it off. I just think the only thing is whether or not it's really going to become anything is entirely hingent right now on Suicide Squad. If Suicide Squad, I've always said with these movies, it really doesn't matter what they're about, and people worry about oversaturation and the bubble bursting, that now DC is going to be coming out with 2 movies a year, and Marvel's going to be 2 and soon 3 movies a year, and then plus Fox getting in on this, and Sony and all that, or Columbia, whatever you want to call them. People worry about oversaturation and stuff like that, and people might get sick of superhero movies. But I don't think they're going to get sick of superhero movies if they continue to make good movies. If you look at some of the ones that came out this year, people have lauded Winter Soldier as a good movie, just as it is. It was a really good movie. Guardians of the Galaxy, their soundtrack just got nominated for a Grammy. Take that for what it's worth. The People's Choice Award, whatever, all that fun stuff. Guardians of the Galaxy, people wondered, are we ready to... Guardians of the Galaxy is different because they were not built up through a comic book legacy. They're a property that's built up through the movie. And the question is, can you build up a property through the movie? Could it happen? And if this was not a well-written movie, or if this was not a well-acted movie, if this wasn't a good overall movie, then people would say, well, no, clearly you can't do that. And the first thing they would blame is Guardians of the Galaxy not being a known enough commodity as a comic. And now, because it was good, now people can sort of say, well, now maybe we can sort of take lesser known things and bring them to the screen. Inhumans. I cannot tell you, since Marvel has announced an Inhumans movie, how many people and how many times I've had to explain what an Inhuman is. And I'm sure I'm going to do it a lot on this podcast, and that's I'm perfectly okay with that. But it's Inhumans are by no stretch of the imagination a really known commodity. But because Guardians of the Galaxy did well, it shows that they're capable of building a franchise, using the movie to build a franchise, as opposed to extending a franchise onto the screen. It's really different than taking an Iron Man or a Batman, or, well, even Iron Man was a little iffy at the time, but either way, a Batman or a Spider-Man or anything like that, a very popular hero, and then bring him to the screen. Now it shows, because Guardians did well, now people realize, well, maybe you can build it up through, again, I keep saying that, but build it up through the movie. And I think that's what this is too. The Suicide Squad, if Suicide Squad makes a good movie, then people will say, oh, well, okay, so we can make movies about villains now. And people can, spread out from there. And we can have a Green Goblin movie, or a Loki movie, or whatever we do from there. Or whatever villains for anybody else. But if it doesn't do well, or if it's a forgettable movie, then people will just, forget about that trend. They won't really bother trying to do villain movies. I think it's odd that they're doing this movie this soon. I understand. Well, now they've introduced a buttload of villains that they'll be able to have to play with in their movies down the road. That they can make a new Batman movie and put in this Joker and not have to waste time explaining who he is. But then it's just it almost makes me wonder, would a Suicide Squad movie be better if we knew who these villains all were? Because that way you get sort of an Avengers type of feel, where it's these established characters coming together. Now we're meeting them as they're together. That would be my one issue, I guess I'd say, that I would take with the fact that a Suicide Squad movie is coming out now. But speaking of the Suicide Squad, they did make some pretty big news announcing the casting this week. They cast the whole team. I'll start with the least important and go from there. Cara Delevingne. I have no idea how to pronounce that last name. I'm going to be entirely honest. Cara Delevingne. We won't even pronounce that G. That's Delevingne. I don't know how to pronounce that, so I'm going to skip right over that. She is playing Enchantress. Then we have Jai Courtney playing Boomerang, or Captain Boomerang, depending on what you want to call him. This was a huge one. This is Margot Robbie playing Harley Quinn. Margot Robbie, the beautiful Margot Robbie from Wolf of Wall Street. Of course, Tom Hardy returning to DC after not a long stint away. He's going to be playing Rick Flag. Of course, he is the guy in The Dark Knight Returns who played or The Dark Knight Rises, sorry. The Dark Knight's always doing so much. The Dark Knight Rises, he played Bane. Now he is Rick Flag in this movie. These were the two big ones, though. Will Smith will be playing the character Deadshot, and Jared Leto will be playing the Joker. For those of you who don't know, the Suicide Squad is a movie about all these guys in jail, and the government comes to them and offers them reduced sentences if they'll go on these missions for them, and that's why they ended up doing it. So it's a really interesting concept, and I think it could be a pretty good movie. But like I said, I think it would be a bigger movie. It could be a bigger deal. I guess could be a good term for it, if it was something they did after the villains were introduced. But then again, this is just a different way of doing it. So maybe this works out, and maybe this is the way people start doing things: introducing the villains and then putting them into to square off with the hero they're meant to be against. The one complaint I've heard about this casting list, and this is not my complaint, this is a complaint I have heard from people on Reddit and people on different online forums and stuff, is a lot of people were upset about Will Smith playing Deadshot, because Deadshot wasn't necessarily a central character of Suicide Squad. From what I understand, I haven't read too much of it, but people worried because the big name is playing him, it's going to be all about Will Smith this, Will Smith that. And I'll say this, I think Jared Leto's a fantastic actor. I think the one thing that's hurting him is, really, no matter what he does, it is going to be hard for people to look beyond Heath Ledger's Joker. He doesn't get a fair shake at playing well, to be fair, Heath Ledger didn't get a fair shake at playing the Joker. Everybody immediately, this is terrible casting. But the fact of the matter is, obviously, he killed it, and I guess I shouldn't say that. Well, he did very well. Oops. Well, he did very well as the Joker, but there's no way that anyone's going to be able to look at Jared Leto's performance without constantly comparing it to Heath Ledger. That's what's going to be going on the whole time. Fans should be very happy, though, finally getting Harley Quinn, who is a fan favorite. She's basically DC's Deadpool. I found her and Deadpool to be very, very similar as far as fans just love them because they're just wacky and crazy and stuff. And I'm oversimplifying the hell out of her, but anyways, fans will be very thrilled to finally get Harley Quinn in the big screen. Harley Quinn side by side with the Joker, of course, Jared Leto and Margot Robbie. So that's going to be pretty interesting. Will Smith, that's the one for me. I just I like Will Smith. I like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, West Philadelphia, born and raised, represent. But I just think as of late, I don't know. I think he's I don't want to say fallen off, but I'm not as entertained by Will Smith, and I very much understand some people's complaint that now it may just, they're worried that it may be the Will Smith show featuring, the rest of the characters. Suicide Squad is going to be written by David Ayer, who wrote Fury, and he's also going to be directing. It's going to be produced by Charles Roven, Richard Suckle, and executive produced by Zack Snyder, Deborah Snyder, Colin Wilson, and Jeff Johns. And again, that's going to be in theaters August 5th, 2016. So after Batman vs. Superman. So maybe some of these villains might pop up in that. That's already a pretty crowded movie as it is, but who knows? Maybe they'll make it 8 hours and they can fit everybody. Anyways, in other movie casting news, because this really was a huge week, that was DC. We also got 3 Marvel movies. Got some pretty important, well, not necessarily movies, but 3 Marvel casting. One of them was Fox, though. We'll start with the Fox one. This one, not a surprise, just a confirmation of something a lot of people thought. Deadpool. There's another fan favorite. He's kind of the Marvel's Harley Quinn. Anyways, so fans excited when they released the test footage they did to see how a Deadpool movie would play out on a big screen. They after that was so popular, they decided, okay, the movie's coming. It's coming February of 2016. Again, this is another 2016 flick. As to be expected, Ryan Reynolds has officially been announced to be reprising his role. I'm going to say redeeming his role. He gets an opportunity at redemption for that dumpster fire that was X-Men Origins Wolverine. Although you can't really blame him. The parts that he actually got to play, Wade Wilson, were all right. It was just later on when he had his mouth stitched shut and was Weapon 13, and that was just a disaster. Ryan Reynolds takes to Twitter, though, tweets, "It's chimichanga time," along with a picture of Deadpool made out of shotgun shells. Beautiful. And then Ryan Liefeld, who I cannot stand, went out and said Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool, confirming the matter. Rob Liefeld sucks. I'm just gonna say that. Maybe that I hope I'm hoping not rustling any feathers. I hope there's not any big Rob Liefeld fans out there. But you ever wanna just an example of how awful things can be in the world? Rob Liefeld's Captain America. It's just, I'm sure you've heard of it. It's I can't even explain it. Just Google Rob Liefeld's Captain America. I'm not gonna post a picture anywhere because I don't want to remember it exists. But just it's bad. It's really bad. It'll be the first picture. Anyways, moving over to the Netflix side of things with the Marvel Cinematic Universe obviously expanding to the world of Netflix with these original series. We've got Daredevil coming in May. We've got Jessica Jones officially confirmed to be coming in 2015 as well, so that's very exciting. No information further than that, and we still don't know when Luke Cage is coming or when Iron Fist is coming. We do know that Luke Cage will be reportedly in I think like 6 episodes of Jessica Jones' story before he gets his own spinoff. So we will get to see him this year as well. But anyways, they have cast Jessica Jones as Kristen Ritter, who of course of the Bee from Apartment 23. We all know that, of course. She was also Jesse's girlfriend in Breaking Bad, who, spoiler alert, well, I won't even, no, I will. You've had plenty of time to watch it. Walt ends up killing her. Well, not killing her, but she ODs and she's choking on her own puke and he just watches him. And I hope that spoiled it for you because you've had plenty of time to watch the show. If you haven't yet, that's on you. I'm not spoiler tagging that. I'm not, just whatever. Anyways, of course, Daredevil stars British thespian Charlie Cox. So it's going to be interesting to see these two working together. And the rumor right now is that Mike Coulter was supposedly the guy that all these different women tested with, read their lines with as Jessica Jones, but that has not been confirmed. Marvel has officially confirmed that Kristen Ritter will play Jessica Jones. They've also confirmed that the series will be called A.K.A. Jessica Jones, which people will remember was a rumor many years ago that Marvel was planning on bringing a show to TV called A.K.A. Jessica Jones. And I swear every time I saw Brian Michael Bendis or anybody in an interview, it was, what's the status on that? And like, oh, well, the script's done, so it's just, will it happen? And so it's just funny to see that they actually are keeping that title from all these years ago. The final casting news that really came out this week is a guy who's going to be having his own movie and probably his own franchise. He's going to be a pretty big piece of the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward, confirming what many people thought, and I'm super thrilled about this. Benedict Cumberbatch will be playing Doctor Strange. It's finally nice to have a name to it, even if it is an absurd one like Cumberbatch, but fans may know him from quite a few things. He's currently on BBC's Sherlock. He plays Sherlock, and he is the voice and mocap performer for Smaug the dragon in Lord of the Rings, Desolation of Smaug, and the upcoming one, The Hobbit. Well, I shouldn't say Lord of the Rings, I should say The Hobbit. He was in The Hobbit, Desolation of Smaug, and The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies, of course, which is in theaters this month. Time flies. That's it for the movie side of things, though. Let's move on to the comic book side. This is... like I said, every week we're doing I'm going to help you get to know somebody from the world of comic books. And this week, I have decided to stick with the villain theme. And I'm going with Spider-Man villain Carnage, A.K.A. Cletus Cassidy. Carnage is another guy who's a bit of a fan favorite. He's a total serial killer, psychopath type of guy. The list of people he's murdered as Carnage is staggering. Hundreds of innocent people, as well as some not so innocent ones. So I don't know. But anyways, he gets a piece of a symbiote attached to it. He gets a symbiote attached to him that has sort of splintered off of Venom. The Venom symbiote, of course, attached at this point to Eddie Brock. Nowadays, obviously, Flash Thompson. Anyways, though, Carnage first shows up in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1. These are, again, I'm going to highlight 5 comics or story moments that really define who he is. Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1, number 360. He was created by David Michelin and artist Eric Larson and Mark Bagley, still doing art today. And while he's not the main focus of the story, we see the symbiote bind to Cletus Cassidy, who was a murderer and Eddie Brock's cellmate at Rikers Island, and become Carnage, and it sets up the next story. It's one of those classic cases of Wolverine. The issue everybody goes out to buy is the one with Wolverine on the cover of an issue of The Incredible Hulk, but he actually showed up on the last panel on the page before. It's the same situation here. So for any collectors out there, you're looking for Amazing Spider-Man 360, not 361. Then a real big thing that comes a little later on, 1993's Maximum Carnage. It's a 14-part event that started in Spider-Man Unlimited in May 1993, and it ended in August 1993. It has Cletus Cassidy's symbiote destroyed by a sonic weapon, and he gets arrested and just taken in, and he gets transferred to the newly opened Ravencroft Institute. He learns while he's there that the symbiote has merged with his blood, so he ends up cutting his own wrist with the handcuffs, and of course the blood comes out, turns into the symbiote, and transforms him into Carnage. He ends up helping some people escape, including Shriek, a Spider-Man villain, and they sort of get into this weird like husband and wife thing, and he ends up with a whole family. He ends up making a family, and it gets really twisted and messed up. I won't spoil too much because it's definitely worth a read, but he and his family end up taking over New York City, and it takes a lot of heroes coming together to stop him. A video game based on that story arc was actually released by the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, and it was turned into a haunted house at Universal's Island of Adventures in 2002. Really good read, though, if you can find it. New Avengers Volume 1, Number 2. This is in 2000, I want to say 5, something like that. Carnage is one of the prisoners escaping from the Raft, which is an island it's an island prison in the middle of the water. He's escaping from the Raft, and in honestly one of the most shocking pages in comics I've ever seen. The Marvel's super powered. I can't even describe him. Crazy. He's a psycho. He's totally godlike power. I think they say the power of a million exploding suns or something like that. The Sentry. The Sentry grabs Carnage, he flies out into space, and he rips him in half. And again, like I said, one of the craziest pages of a comic book I've ever seen. Let me jump ahead a little bit. Carnage Volume 1, Number 3. The Carnage symbiote, after that happened, falls back to Earth. It was discovered by a rival of Tony Stark and used to make new synthetic limbs for people. Well, the limbs, when they get close to the symbiote, they go nuts and they start killing people and stuff. And it ends up getting revealed that the Carnage symbiote has been somehow keeping Cletus Cassidy alive. I believe he had him in the sewers or underground somewhere, and he'd replaced his whole lower body with those prosthetics. So he was keeping him alive that way, and in the end, the symbiote goes off of who it was on and goes back onto Cletus Cassidy, and he's back to being Carnage. The crazy killer is back and on the loose. And then we flash forward a little bit to Axis Carnage number 1, of which I have a review of up on thecomicbooknerd.blogspot.com. Again, that's the blog. Carnage is part of a team that Magneto leads to Genosha. This all happens in Axis before this issue, but Magneto leads a team of villains, including Carnage and some other ones, to Genosha to fight Red Onslaught, who is the Red Skull turned into this evil creature who I won't even get into right now. Along with the other heroes and villains, Scarlet Witch and Doctor Doom do this spell in hopes of stopping the Red Onslaught, an inversion spell that sort of shifts people's moral compass. And Carnage is one of the people that gets hit. So we open with Axis Carnage. It's a 3-part miniseries about Carnage trying to learn to be a hero and learn how to do the right thing. And it's a really good read. Axis Carnage number 1. Axis Carnage number 2 is pretty good too. And number 3 will be due out Wednesday, December 10th. So you'll want to definitely check that out. And Carnage can now be read. It is just like I said in Axis Carnage number 3. Again, will be out again on Wednesday, December 10th. As far as other media goes, movies, as I said at the top of the show, Sony has announced plans for a Venom movie that some reports claimed would be called Venom Carnage, focusing on both villains, but Sony has reportedly canceled those plans for now after The Amazing Spider-Man 2 did not live up to expectations. For the TV side of things, Carnage appeared in animated form in The Ultimate Spider-Man as a mixture of the Goblin formula, Harry Osborn's blood, and Spider-Man's blood, and after he defeats Spider-Man and his friends, it binds with Harry and turns back into a version of Venom. I'm not a big fan of that show. I mean, it's not for me, I get that, but it's just, I don't know. just very, very loose with the subject matter. But anyways, for video games, Carnage appears as a playable character in LEGO Marvel Heroes. He's an enemy in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, the video game, and has been announced as a boss in the Facebook game Marvel Avengers Alliance. And in 2009, IGN ranked him as the 90th greatest comic book villain of all time. So there you have it. That's a little bit more information on Carnage. So if and when he ever shows up in a movie, you can say, hey, I know that guy. He's the one that did all that stuff. Blah, 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 blah. Now I'm gonna try to make this quick, but I'm gonna break down. I have a comic for you. Again, like I said, every week I'm gonna be breaking down a comic book so you guys can know what happened in it, and hopefully go on and continue the series after I give you a nice little jumping on point. And what a perfect jumping on point this is. Coming out this week was Angela, Asgard's Assassin #1. Angela is a character from Spawn, created by Neil Gaiman. And there was a whole legal battle that went on as to who owns the rights to it. Is it Todd McFarlane, who does Spawn, or is it Neil Gaiman, who created the character? Well, Neil Gaiman won the rights to the character, took it away from Spawn, and as he came back to Marvel Studios, sold the character to Marvel, so Marvel now owns the rights to Angela. Angela is an angel from heaven spelled Heaven. The way Marvel did it was heaven is the 10th realm, this mysterious 10th realm from Asgard lore that was blocked off from the rest of the realms because the angels of heaven hated the Asgardians, and they were constantly at war with one another. And Odin had a daughter, to which the queen of the angels killed that daughter, and Odin was heartbroken and sealed their realm away from the rest of them forever. But it turns out, obviously, that she's not dead, and that the queen raised her as her own, and that's who Angela is. So, spoiler alert, Angela is Odin's daughter. That was revealed in Original Sin, the story arc by Jason Aaron. That was pretty interesting, which makes it Thor's sister, Loki's adoptive sister. And anyways, she gets totally kicked out of heaven, and they say, you're never welcome back here, and they close the door forever. Who knows if we'll ever see heaven again. Again, Heaven, so nobody get upset. But anyways, the story opens up with Angela. She does not have very good ties with Asgard at the moment. She hates Thor, and she hates the rest of the Asgardians. The story opens with her wandering around through a desert. They end up saying that it's limbo, the space between realms. She comes across this town with all these little goblin dudes in it. She's holding something in her arm, though. We end up seeing she's holding a bundle, presumably a baby. So it's like, immediately you open the right out of the gates. It's like, who the heck is this kid? What's going on? And she comes in and she says she's looking for somebody, and she says, give me her. And they're like, well, who the heck are you talking about? And she starts attacking them like she's going to fight them off till she finds who she's looking for. And then there's who she's looking for. Another cast out angel by the name of Sarah, Sera. She explains that Sarah is her companion, her best friend, travels with her, goes around wherever she goes and stuff. And then they're standing there for a minute like, oh, good to see you, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then they realize that they've been followed by, they're never specific about who these guys are, but they're these undead sort of Viking guys that are on her tail. And so they're coming to get Angela, presumably for this baby that she has, whoever this baby is. And they show up, and Angela draws her sword. It's actually a pretty badass sword, and it's pretty sweet. She's got another thing on her back. She draws her blade, and this leader of the goblins is talking to Sarah. And as far as the visual stuff goes, it's Angela fighting these guys, and she's insanely fast, almost so fast you can't see her. But what they're using this opportunity as this fight's going on, Sarah is explaining to the goblin leader of the goblins, whoever this is. By the way, Angela, of course, she ends up stabbing the one guy, and she one by one picks them off and kills each one of them. And it's pretty cool looking with the art. Very nice art. I should mention, actually, I forgot to bring that up. As far as the art goes, the writing is by Kieran Gillen, and the art is by Phil Jimenez. So the art looks amazing. I thought the writing was pretty good. But so she's killing these undead warriors, and Sarah tells a story of Angela going through a space or whatever this is. She's going through space, and she ends up finding an infant child. She finds this infant, and at first she's considering just letting the infant die, because angels are very, very I don't know what the best word is, but everything about them is a deal. Everything's in debt. If I do something for you, you are now in debt to me, and I can come for that whenever I want. And she said, what deal could a child make that would be worth saving it? But she ends up deciding to save it anyways, and she takes the baby to its parents, brings it to the parents, and says, this child will owe me, and you will tell it its whole life that it does. And he was told his whole life that someday Angela will come and she will have a favor. And this guy rises up and he ends up becoming, this baby grows up to be king of his village, wherever these people are. And we end up on a day where Sarah, again, Angela's companion, is in chains in front of the king. We don't know exactly what she did. She said, I think she had killed some of the king's people, but she's basically going to be executed. And the king is sitting there passing his judgment on her. And Angela comes in and says, King, you owe me. I'm here to repay that debt. You will let Sarah go. And she says, I understand that, but I can't do that. She drew blood from my people. It cannot happen. And she said, I'm asking you for a second time. You owe me, and I'm here to claim my debt. And as my debt repayment, I want her to be let go. And he says, I cannot free her from justice. And she says, you do not understand. You must repay the debt one way or another. A third time, I ask, I beg. He shakes his head and he says, no. So she pulls her sword out, runs at him, and plunges it right through his chest. Naturally, that's the obvious decision to make in that situation. So he's dead. And she says, all things are balanced now. His life was mine to take, so I did. She takes Sarah, frees her. It even mentions that she ends up sending money to the people to help them select a new king to make sure all debts are settled. So it's a really weird system with the angels, and there's no arguing with them either. And anyways, we flash back into, present day, and she's talking with Sarah about how could they have seen us. And Sarah's like, well, we know they're all seeing. And this part I found really interesting because then they start talking about Heimdall of Asgard. Heimdall, as many of you may know, he's the keeper of the Bifrost. He guards the gate in there. And his thing is he's all seeing. He can see everything going on everywhere at all times. And so Asgard knows him as a great protector and great watcher of everything, and that's how we've always known him in the comics. But Sarah's talking about him and says, she said, you were... Angela says, well, I didn't think anyone would watch us, and she says, and you were wrong. You know the tales as well as I do. The all-seeing monster who spies on angels, peering at them constantly in his perversion. And she says, I had hoped that was a myth, a really creepy myth. And I just think that's really funny to see these Asgardian stories told in such the opposite direction, because these are angels who've grown up their whole life thinking Asgard is evil and they're the devil and everything like that. And so then the clouds open up and some stuff happens. There's bolts of lightning, and there we have Thor. Well, I should say the Odin's son. Thor, of course, no longer worthy. He doesn't have the hammer Mjolnir anymore. He has his axe though, Jarnbjorn, who can cut through basically any material. That's a pretty powerful axe, but again, it's not Mjolnir. But anyways, he's got Lady Sif with him. He's got Boulder. He's got the Warriors 3. But he's got a bunch of Asgardian with him. They even said the Horde of Asgard, the Odin son, Sif, the Warriors 3, and a heavily armed Asgardian friends. They show up and the Goblin King wonders, why are Asgardians doing here? And Sarah says, because she's taken the new heir to Asgard. And they show this baby, and it's this baby with blonde hair and black, I guess, smoke or something coming out of his eyes and his nose. And she says, nothing for nothing and all that, which is what they talk about, the angels with their trades. When you have nothing, you get nothing. And so that's how it ends. It says to be continued, but we now know she has this baby who is suddenly the heir to Asgard, which I don't understand who this baby is, and that's going to be really interesting to see going forward, because Angela is technically the new heir to the throne, and even if she wasn't, Thor is there, but I guess maybe since he's unworthy now, maybe he's not. But this is a newborn baby that she has that is being called the new heir to Asgard. So who is this baby? Why does Angela have him? What's going on? So many questions. It was a good read, though. Good art. And I think it's I'm always leery with number ones because I get sometimes they have to introduce characters and set things up like a pilot of a show. But I really enjoyed this one, and I can honestly say I'm definitely going to be back for number 2. Again, that's Angela, Asgard's Assassin, number 1. It's still in stores now if you want to go pick it up. But I also did just tell you what happened, unless you skipped through. And for those of you who did skip through that part, welcome back. I'm nearing the end of the show, so I'm going to do this real quick before we go. I got the Netflix list of Netflix stuff coming this week. We start with December 8th. That's today. If you're, depending on when you're listening to it. We've got Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown, Season 3 coming up. December 9th, I Am Ali. It's pretty interesting. It's all about Muhammad Ali and his personal journal and all that. It's a pretty sweet documentary. Drive Hard, starring John Cusack, on December 9th. A Haunted House 2, December 11th. The Village, The Wolf of Wall Street. So for those of you who don't know who Margot Robbie is, you can check that out on December 11th and get an idea of, the woman who is going to next play Harley Quinn. On December 12th, there is Broadchurch Season 1, Marco Polo, a new Netflix original series. I'm very excited about this one. Nick Offerman, American Ham. Here's a description of it. He says, riding on the crest of his TV success in Parks and Recreation, musician and comedian Nick Offerman covers a galaxy of topics in a one-man stage show filmed live in New York. The show features Offerman's woodworking skills and tips for prosperity. That's right, he's going to be up there giving people tips on woodworking while he's doing his stand-up comedy. It's that you can't beat that. December 13th, you have Don't Blink, and December 15th, Jake Squared. I don't know what that is, but I'm just reading the list. That's it for that week, and I'll have next week's. I'll let you know what's coming next week when we get to next week. You know what? I'm gonna do this real quick too, though. Time Magazine did their list of the top 15 influential, the 15 most influential fictional characters of 2014. There's some interesting people on this list. They ranked number 15. They put Hello Kitty. Number 14, for anyone that watches How I Met Your Mother, they put the mother, who finally showed up in the final season. I won't ruin how that ended, but it ended badly. Number 13, Amy Doon, the title character from Gone Girl. Number 12, Mr. Pooh from the UNICEF public service video about Pooh. Anyways, number 11, Rust Cole, who's Matthew McConaughey's character in True Detective. Number 10, we have the female Thor, I guess breaking gender barriers, the hammer going to a woman for the first time. We'll talk more on that series as time goes on, and we actually figure out who specifically it is wielding the hammer now, because her identity is still up in the air, although I have some ideas. Number 9, Annalise Kading from How to Get Away with Murder. Number 8, Hatsune Miku, I am not pronouncing that right, the computer-generated Japanese musician. Okay. Number 7, Katniss Everdeen, of course, from The Hunger Games. Number 6, Mara Pfefferman, who is Jeffrey Tambor's transgendered character that he plays in his new show, Prove, I think it's, Transparent. That's right. His new show, Transparent. First transgender person to headline a TV show. That's pretty interesting. Number 5, King Joffrey from Game of Thrones. Number 4, Stephen Colbert of The Colbert Report. Only 8 episodes left of that. Number 3, Star-Lord of Guardians of the Galaxy. Really happy to see that one make the list. Of course, Guardians of the Galaxy opening with a $94 million opening weekend, on its way to $771 million globally. Number 2, Kim Kardashian from Kim Kardashian's mobile app. That's great. That's just great. And number 1, Elsa from Frozen, the chick that's all about that ice stuff and singing about letting it go and all that. So there you have it. Nice to see comic books get mentioned twice on the list. Female Thor and Star-Lord. Once again, remember to check out the website comicbooknerd.net, facebook.com/the Comic Book Nerd Podcast. The comicbooknerd.blogspot.com is the website. Follow the show, or is the blog archive website, I should say. At the CB Nerd on Twitter, and at eRalphieW on Twitter. Those are the Twitter accounts, of course, the one for the show and the one for myself. Next week, a lot of stuff. Thinking about breaking down Daisy Johnson, A.K.A. Quake, who may or may not be an important character. We'll see what happens. On Tuesdays, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It is the winter finale or mid-season finale, whatever you want to call it, and that one promises to be very big, so you'll want to check that out because I will be talking about that next week along with so much other stuff. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you guys, talk to you guys anyways next week. Tell your friends, spread the word. Thank you so much for listening, and everybody have a good day.